As we discuss about the revolution, we try to imagine how the world is going to change in the years to come. We have invited the experts from the diverse industries who are working towards the technological advancements. I would like to call upon stage Moneeza, partner KPMG. Moneeza has been working with KPMG for over 20 years and is the first female to become a partner in the big four firms of Pakistan. Moneeza shall moderate the panel discussion and introduce the panelists.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start with a quote of Bill Gates. He once said, "We are changing the world with technology." And how right he was. The last decade has witnessed the greatest and most compressed degree of technology-driven change that the world has ever seen. The use of technology that we take for granted today was inconceivable by the generations of yesteryears. The rapid pace with which this technological revolution is advancing necessitates people of all professions to be geared up for the challenges it would have to offer. The fourth industrial revolution builds up on the digital revolution, representing new ways in which technology becomes embedded within societies and even the human body. In the words of Professor Schiller, a Nobel laureate of the Yale University, "You cannot wait until a house burns down to buy fire insurance on it." Similarly, we cannot wait until there are massive dislocations in our society to prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. So without further ado, I would like to invite our respected panelists on stage, starting with Mr. Aamir Matin. Mr. Aamir Matin is the Head of Technology and Strategy at Habib Bank Limited. He has also worked as General Manager Cisco and an advisor to the Federal Minister on IT and Telecom. Thank you. Mr. Khawaja Tanveer Saleem, CIO at Engro Corporation. He is responsible for value creation, value contribution, and partnering in business transformation by IT. He has achieved valuable industry recognition in the field of IT, project management, and compliance. Thank you, Tanveer. Ms. Ameena Saiyid, Head of OUP Pakistan. In 2005, Ameena became the first Pakistani woman to be awarded the Order of the British Empire for her services to women's rights, education, and intellectual property rights in Pakistan. She is also the founder of the Karachi Literature Festival and has been conferred the prestigious French award, Knight of Order of Arts and Letters, for her work in promoting literary culture. Thank you, Ameena. Next, I would like to invite on stage Ms. Jehan Ara. Ms. Jehan Ara has 30 years of experience in marketing, communications, and interactive new media in Hong Kong, Far East, the UAE, and Pakistan. Cybercrime, privacy, and data protection legislation are some of the areas she is advocating for. She's a strong propagator of extending power and use of information communication technologies. Thank you for joining us today, Jehan Ara. Mr. Ehsan Malik, the CEO of Pakistan Business Council. Prior to this, he was the CEO of Unilever and has spent 24 years with Unilever in UK, Egypt, and Sri Lanka. A fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, Mr. Ehsan is an alumni of the Wharton and Harvard Business Schools. He is also a board member of Abbott, Gul Ahmed, IGI, National Foods and International Industries Limited. Thank you, Mr. Ehsan. Ms. Hina Usmani, a fellow chartered accountant from ICAP. She possesses more than 20 years of experience in the financial sector in the field of corporate advisory, financial management, risk management, and corporate sectorial practices. She started her practice as a sole proprietor in 2004. Thank you, Hina. I would now join the panelists and start the panel discussion. Thank you. Thank you so much, panelists, for joining us today, and I look forward to this constructive discussion. After I ask you questions, we will open the floor also so that the audience can participate in it too. Starting with Mr. Aamir. Okay, Aamir, we know that the early industrial revolutions have focused on manufacturing facilities mostly, and this fourth industrial revolution shall be the first one to alter the conventional business banking models. So, representing one of the largest banks in Pakistan, how well equipped do you think the financial industry in our country is to respond to the challenges posed by technological advancements? And more precisely, how safe do you think banks are from these immense transformations, especially in the light of digital startups?
Thank you for those questions. Can you hear me properly? Yes. So to take your questions one by one. So the first thing that you're talking about is whether the fourth industrial revolution or the fourth revolution is obviously not so much to do with manufacturing itself as it is to do with digitization of many of the processes that we have ongoing in our day-to-day lives. If we talk about financial services industry, Pakistan, you'd be surprised to know, or maybe not, that the financial services has always been in the leading wave of adoption of new technologies. So going back to 1960s, UBL and HBL and the other banks had actually adopted technology. And there have been currently also, if you look at the landscape in Pakistan, they are early adopters of various technologies. These days you're looking at machine learning, you're looking at artificial intelligence, and these are all products that are being adopted by the financial services industry in Pakistan. So from my perspective, I feel that the banking industry in Pakistan is really extremely well equipped to adapt and adopt anything that comes their way. And this has been a historical fact as well. So I'm reasonably comfortable that anything that is happening out there will be something that can be adopted by ourselves quite rapidly and quite effortlessly. And in fact, we have examples of that happening as we speak. Now, moving on to this concept of fintechs that you talked about, again, in fact, this is my personal view, I'm obviously not here representing the banking industry. We believe that the fintech revolution that is in the offing, and there is no doubt about it, there are major changes that are happening. There's a little bit of a difference between our industry and all the other industries that you see this disruption happening in. In our industry, you realize that there is a lot more regulation than there is in, say, the Airbnb type of areas or the Careem and the Uber areas. Because of this regulation, it is very unlikely that you would have a small startup. It may well happen, but it's unlikely that you would have a startup who would be able to, navigate all the regulatory requirements and end up becoming a major player in this business. More than likely, they will come up with a new idea or a new innovative company that would then team up with an existing large organization like ourselves and then offer those services. So that, in my opinion, is how this is going to play out.
Okay, so it's good to hear that. But do you think the fintech concept, are banks taking that as a challenge, or are they taking it as an area of collaboration? Because we heard of branchless banking also, going forward.
Fine. So I would respond to that by saying that the old word of co-opetition, where you say you are cooperating at times and you're also competing at times. And this is again something which is always happening all around us. That is at least my opinion, and that's something that we are trying to do. So not only are we investing in fintechs ourselves, we are also incubating fintechs within our own organization. And remember, when you talk about a fintech, it doesn't have to be necessarily a separate legal entity. It could be a group of people to whom you give a challenging idea and say, why don't you go and look at this and come back to us with a solution, which is what we're doing and many of the other banks are doing as well. So I would not look at this as a threat at all. I would say this is an opportunity for us to adapt and adopt and move along. Something that we've always been doing, because there are new things coming along all the time, and you just need to make sure that you're on top of what is going to happen. By the way, making predictions about the future in the IT business and the computer business is very, very tricky. There is this saying, I don't know how true it is, that Thomas Watson, who's the main player or the founder of IBM, 1940s, said that there would probably be a world market for 5 computers. And this is Thomas Watson, who is one of the biggest names in this business. Now, whether or not that prediction is true, but it's certainly well recognized that predicting anything is going to be very, very difficult. So I would not venture to make grand predictions.
Yes, that's understandable. And for the benefit of the audience, we have a talk on fintech during the day. So they would learn more about that in that, I'm sure. So coming on to you, Tanveer, we have heard the term smart manufacturing. So could you elaborate on the digitalization of manufacturing plants, which is gaining ground in current years?
Shukriya, thank you. You mentioned about the smart manufacturing, or we call the manufacturing 4.0. These are all sort of buzzwords that always floating around across all the various parts of the industries at various times in the various businesses. So one of the most amazing buzzword which is currently prevailing is more of this 4.0 and the industry revolution. At the end of the day, eventually it's something which boils down to the entire digital supply chain that we're talking about. And when we talk about supply chain, it's not just about the manufacturing 4.0, it's just not specifically the part of the factory or a smart factory. It starts from the planning part and goes up to the distribution level, touching base all those components where the handshake takes place. And one of the key thing across all those handshake is the availability of the information and the speed which that particular information is made available. So if those components are being done and replicated at the factory, then automatically those manufacturing plants will become the smart plants. And just to give you a simple example, there has been the plants which has been there for ages, and there's been lots of things being done in the world. For example, you must have heard about the GE, who after 75 years of particular work in the business in terms of purely making generators and motors and the typical plant stuff, they decided to get into the formulate a company called GE Digital, wherein they focus just on building up some sort of platform which can actually grab certain information from those plants, analyze those information, store that information, and help us build those sort of predictive intelligence which can make those machines smart machines. This is something which we have also seen in terms of typical machine learnings, which is now becoming more and more popular these days. We have seen in terms of, even our home appliances. I think most of you must have seen the Orient split AC. They are now not being shipped with the remote controls. Instead, they are being shipped with an app. And you have an app on your phone, and if you're coming home and you want your aircon to be started before you actually reach home, provided you have electricity in Karachi, then you can use the app, you can switch on the AC before you actually enter your home. So that thing again comes part, there has to have some sort of a connectivity, some sort of a storage, some sort of capability build, but all something that could make it more smarter and more smarter. So that applies to the smart cars, it applies to the smart aircraft, it applies to the smart homes, it applies to the smart machines, and so it applies to the smart manufacturing as well.
So I guess it will make all of us smart then in the end. So, Tanveer, we've heard a lot about these words like blockchain, data, big data, cloud computing. So could you precisely tell us what effects they would have on the economy and what companies can do to cope with such disruptive technologies?
Yes, in fact, they are disruptive. And, one of the disruptive technology I think that each one of us must be using is the Facebook. It is a disruptive to an extent that even your wife is your friend, your father is your friend, your son is your friend, your daughter is your friend. So that's one of the disruption that you see whenever you use the Facebook in there. Plus, jokes aside, all those things which lots of people have started using here, like things like Uber and Kareem and Bitcoins and stuff like that. So those things are again part of the thing we're disrupting the normal ways of the way we have been operating. What can we think of the future of those drivers which are not part of Uber and Kareem nowadays? So there were times when we used to have a Peely taxi stuff that comes in, provide those sort of job opportunities for the people. Now the job opportunities are coming up in a totally different format. You need to know how to use a smartphone, and now you don't need to learn the smartphone usage. It's automatically intuitive, and it automatically helps you learn the way it has to perform. So all those technologies, be it a cloud, be it an IoT, be it an industrial IoT, that more pertinent to the manufacturing plants, or if you call big data analytics, that all goes hand in hand together. They're all part of the entire ecosystem. We can't have one particular aspect and we can say, okay, how can that particular technology disrupt the entire system? It's the entire ecosystem that goes in all in all. For example, if I just use the example of the smart manufacturing, if we have got the plants in there and we have got a sensors placed on the plants, and sensors are sending us a whole lot of information, then that information needs to be stored somewhere. Now, those information, if you start storing in your own data centers, it will be a humongous amount of information, and that information and the storage will be requiring a whole lot of money to spend. And there's the place where the cloud comes in. When you say, okay, you have a cloud storage available, and most of you might be using the cloud storage. Some of you must be using Dropbox, you must be using OneDrive and Google Drive and so on and so forth. So those things are available and currently being used. once you have the information on the storage, then you want to analyze the information. So that just means that you just don't need some sort of a crystal report writer. You don't just need a BI. You just don't need a BO. You need something, some sort of a big data who can actually process that level of information which is being collected and stored in the storage in the cloud storage. So cloud, IoT, sensors, all those things, which is simply, is more about having a world of more of a connected things. And we talk about, someone talks about the robots earlier this morning, and it's true that robots are coming up and changing the entire phase of the automation industries. At the same time, those plants, when they made intelligent, automatically they start becoming a robot in itself without actually having any sort of evolution. So it's not necessarily we need to have a transformer sort of a movie to actually transform it thing. It has to be something which is actually already in place, but just putting up some sort of a thing which could make them more intelligent will have the data. In part of your second question, where you mentioned that what should we be doing in that case? So I think the only solution is to embrace those technologies, and we can't live without embracing these technologies. I still recall the days when first time the Spider-Man was released, and it took about 2 to 3 months to actually come to Pakistan and to show in the theaters. Now Spider-Man 4 comes in the same time in the Hollywood as time it comes in Pakistan as well. So or even if you don't have to go to the theaters, it's available on the Netflix and you can start streaming it online and you see it at the comfort of your home place. So all those things are coming up. We have always thought of those drones as something which is more related to the Taliban stuff. Now the commercial drones are available and Amazon is delivering the stuff at your doorstep using those drones. So those things are something which Dr. Saab mentioned in the morning is more of a reality which currently being used for the purpose of businesses. DHL is currently doing a sort of a pilot wherein they are using those smart glasses, or more like the Google glasses that were made, wherein they actually help you navigate to the entire warehouses. And those warehouses is not just the size of this hall, they're humongous warehouses. And they can help you navigate the entire path and what is the nearest route that you can take to reach and pick up a particular item from that warehouse. So all those things are actually adding up in terms of the efficiency. We shouldn't be seeing it in terms of what was actually theme was mentioned on the invitation also, that reduction of the jobs. It might not just be the reduction of job, it might be the transformation of the jobs into some newer roles. Just to give an example, there was a time when year 2000 came, and it says Y2K was the thing, and the time when the audit firms and then the financial institute, they had a good time actually coming with a new sort of jobs in that place. Then, so those things are challenging, those are coming up, but we have to embrace them like any other thing.
Very true. Hello. Yes, thank you, Tanveer. I think it's all about embracing change, and because of that, ICAP has organized this only as a step towards embrace. Okay, Ameena, coming on to you. You're heading one of the biggest publishing houses of the country. Could you share your insights regarding how you deal with automation, especially in light, because in 2011, we know that Borders, the mega bookstore changed, it had to close down, and some 11,000 employees were laid off. And the main reason that they gave is that they could not foresee the e-reader, like Amazon had introduced Kindle, and even Barnes & Noble, I think, had brought in Nook. So what measures would your industry take to remain in business and at the same time be viable?
Well, actually, to say that, some bookshops have closed down because of online sales of books. Yes, that's correct. But also, I think at one stage it was felt that the sales of print books will decline, even disappear, and they will be replaced by the sales of online books. As a publisher, to begin with, I'd like to say that we will not be affected by this change because our job is to generate content. So we commission authors, we prepare the content. Now, how that content is to be delivered to the reader, that is up to us. We have that flexibility. We can deliver it in a digital format if that's what our readers want. We can also deliver it in print format. We can deliver it on tablets, on mobile phones, on any device. We can deliver it in the cloud. So actually, we are not affected by whether print books are in demand or not. However, having said that, I'd like to add that print books continue to be in demand, definitely in in Pakistan, but also in the West. I think many publishers in the West invested heavily in digital resources, thinking that there's going to be a rapid change. However, I think they found, even today, only 15% of their sales are through digital books, and these are mostly reference books, dictionaries, companions, encyclopedias that are selling very well as digital resources. But for novels, for textbooks, and for even academic monographs and books, people are still turning to print books. And I want to give you a small example of children in Oxford, school children, that they were interviewed, and they said, we like reading print books because then we can put them on our bookshelves and show off to our parents and friends that, look, these are all the books that we have read. They said, if we've read them on a tablet, then how do we show off about how many books we've read?
Very true about that. Okay, so Ameena, we have in the audience representatives of the academia. Could you tell us how education institutions could play a role in this digital revolution, and what constructive role they can play in educating our future generations?
Well, education, I think, is going to benefit enormously from educational technology. I think the whole way of learning and teaching will change for the better. There are 4 or 5 the components or the stakeholders of education: schools, teachers, students, classrooms, and resources that children use. All of these will change for the better. I mean, for example, teachers, they will have access to automation, which they'll be able to set and check and grade all their work online. Students will get instant reports on the work that they have done. They will get comments and grades immediately, which will have a beneficial effect on learning and teaching. Teachers will have more time because everything will be automated. They'll have more time to spend on their own personal development, professional development, and on interacting with students. And they will have access to resources such as MOOC, as Dr. Ataur Rahman said this morning, massive open online courses, and courses like the Khan Academy courses. Then there's another app that's been developed called Kahoot, which generates games and quizzes that it has a whole bank of games and quizzes that teachers can use for their children. For students, I think they will be able to move to an anywhere, anytime learning process. They'll be able to learn at home, while at play, while at school. And I think that will empower these students because they will be able to learn independently, so it will lead to a la carte learning. At the same time, it will lead to social learning, to collaboration, because of collaboration tools provided by Google and the cloud. I think the future of education will be more based on the cloud than on devices. So students will be empowered, and they will come to class pre-wired with content. So since they have already learned the content independently, in the classroom, they will be able to then have discussions on what they have learned, and that will lead to critical thinking. Classrooms will change because they will comprise not just of the traditional cohort of students who are in the classroom, but they will be joined by online students around the country or around the globe who will become a part of the classroom. So you can imagine the experiences and the perspectives that will be shared in a classroom. Similarly, resources will change. There will be digital resources. And here, if I can mention that Oxford University Press are working on 3 digital resources. One is called Advantage. And the Advantage is a blended learning course of print and digital resources. It will have content of textbooks based on the local curriculum, but it will also have a lot of other material such as question banks, test generators, professional development modules for teachers, games, quizzes, animations, and it will really change the way students are learning. Similarly, there's the Achiever, which we have developed. Again, that is an online resource for learning English with tests and reports, and children will get immediate results of the work they're doing. And we have developed an e-mate, which will accompany our history and geography courses. So I think learning will move to blended learning.
Yeah, and I guess the world is shrinking, as you highlighted. At this stage, we would like to let our audience know that we are taking a poll. If you log on to our page, www.iacapcawc.com, and there's a question over there, how ready is your company for the fourth industrial revolution? So we would appreciate if you could vote, and the results will be announced at the end of the day. Jehan, coming to you now. We know that your organization is renowned to be very cognizant of startups. Could you share with us, for the benefit of the audience, the steps you and your organization have taken in providing a conducive environment for startups? And also if you can share like some, startups where the creativity really floored you, and it was like a success story that you could quote.
So Pasha, because it's the trade association representing the technology sector, very early on we realized that there were two ways to grow the industry. One was to support existing companies and make sure that we provided them with whatever facilitation they needed. And the second way was to ensure that new companies were formed. And so for the last, say, 10 years, we have been involved in different initiatives to support anybody who wants to start a technology company. First, we had programs like the Pasha Launchpad program, where we would ask young people to come and pitch ideas, and we would give the winners a small amount of money and tell them to go and experiment. Lots of successes have come out of those initiatives, and some people have now million-dollar companies that came out from an idea that they pitched at the Pasha Launchpad event. We also started the Pasha ICT Awards, which are now in their 14th year. And that was to recognize innovation that was happening in the local industry. Because we found that it was not only outside Pakistan that our technology sector was not known for the innovation that was happening. Even local industry, local government, nobody understood what was going on and what great work was happening. So that was our second way of making sure that we were visible. Now, 3 years ago, Pasha launched an incubator, a technology incubator in Karachi. It's called the Nest IO. And the whole idea was that in Karachi, a city this size, and I think the World Bank statistics show that there are never going to be enough jobs at the rate population is growing. The youth bulge needs to be addressed. And so we figured that entrepreneurship was something that we should support. And tech entrepreneurship does not require, at the outset, a large amount of capital. We don't require a mill or a factory or something like that. It requires an idea. It requires access to technology, which most young people who come out of university already have. It requires an internet connection. And of course, they need mentoring, advice, how to turn that idea into a business, which is what we provide at the Nest IO. And so we help these startups to formulate those ideas, validate those ideas, talk to potential customers, see if that idea is even going to fly before they actually get into the tech part of implementing it. So I think that's an important step that Pasha took at that stage. In 3 years, we've had 117 startups that have graduated out of the Nest. That's about 500 young people who've had access to mentors from general industries. So if one of them is working on, say, e-commerce, they may know how to build the technology, but they would not know about the logistics, the distribution, all the problems that are associated with e-commerce. So we've had a lot of people from the Karachi business community and even from outside Karachi who have sat with these young people, given a lot of their time to make sure that that understanding was there. Of course, the next element is investment. So although we encourage most of the young people who come into the incubator, and we tell them, look, you should bootstrap. You should not take investment at the early stage of your business. Bootstrap, try and go as far as you can. Make sure there's traction. Make sure you have customers before you start approaching an investor. But recently what we have done is, in November, we held a conference in Karachi called 021 Disrupt. And the idea of that conference was to show what kind of disruption was happening. We had 60 plus speakers, both from the local market as well as from outside. We have 6 international VC firms who came into Pakistan to talk about how they were interested in investing in the startup ecosystem of Pakistan. And I think that was huge. That is one of the things that we felt was missing, because when that idea that the youngster is working on gets to a certain stage, in Pakistan, although we have investors and they have the right intentions, but many of them do not understand what angel investment really means, whereas people from outside do, because they've been doing it for a long, long time. So we had an investor roundtable at the conference as well, where the local and international investors were able to share ideas and talk about what is needed by the startup ecosystem in Pakistan. We also made sure that there were office hours on the sidelines of the conference where young people who are entrepreneurs or who are playing with an idea that they want to turn into a business were able to meet with potential investors, talk to them about the idea, get feedback. So about 105 of these young people were able to have one-on-one meetings. So I think building the startup ecosystem, being very passionate about it, this is a mission that I personally have taken on and that Pasha has fully supported.
Yes, Jehan, my next question was going to be about funding only. You know, how they make themselves viable, because you can live on love and fresh air, but it's a very short-lived life. So I think you have covered that out also.
So one more thing, I think funding is needed at different levels. They need funding at seed level to make sure that they are able to execute on that idea and turn it into something that people can see as a product. Then they need funding at the next stage in order to go to market. And then they need funding to scale that idea. So that follow-on funding is missing right now. And then they can apply outside for Series A funding. But at the moment, those 3 levels of funding is not required. What is happening is local investors are giving small amounts of money and trying to take a large amount of equity in the business. So when the next round of funding comes about, nobody wants to invest because they say somebody else owns a large stake of your business. So that's, that's something that we need to change. And I think the change will come because this understanding of angel investment will come about, and I think we've started that conversation.
Great. So we've covered banking, manufacturing, education, startups. Now coming to the very pertinent boardroom discussions. Ehsan sir, if I could ask you. You know, digital disruption is a boardroom buzzword, and rightfully so, because they say in every industry sector, 1/3 of them will be disrupted. So how would that affect the composition of the boards and the way the boards work?
Okay, so actually this is a very easy question to answer, particularly given the audience here. I think the answer should really be split into 2. There's the what part of the role that the board has, and of course there's the how is that discharged. So the what part, I think the good news here, and that may come as somewhat of a relief to an audience which is hearing all about disruption and change and speed of change, is that nothing changes as far as the what of the role is concerned. And what is the what of the role? The what of the role is, simply put, governance, oversight, accountability, ensuring that an organization or the business that the board is there for has the systems, the processes to manage the risks, to avail of the opportunities, and indeed, in order to do that, has the right resources. Yeah? So this is what an HR committee, for example, does. It ensures that the leadership and the next level, and perhaps the level below that, has the sufficient skills and the knowledge to be able to manage the business. I think important point to make here is that there has to be always a separation between the management and the board. The board should never dream or wish to become or to start taking over the role of the management. They should ensure that the management is fully empowered and has all the resources. So we've dealt with the what part, and I believe nothing changes as far as the what is concerned. When it comes to the how, I think the how is usually discharged by the board being able to ask the right questions. The ability to ask the right questions comes from the diversity that exists on the board. That diversity, the need for the diversity doesn't change, but the manifestation of the diversity clearly will change as the speed of change hastens up and as disruption happens. So for example, we said one of the roles of the board is to look at strategy. Now, one of the elements of strategy always is to look at the competitive challenge. And traditionally, when you look at competitive challenge, you look at traditional competitors, right? People who are in the same business. You never look at disruptive competition. So obviously, if the diversity of the board allows it to look at potential competitors, not traditional competitors, then that has to be factored into the how part of the strategy. The other aspect to look at is that traditionally, the accountability is discharged by looking at the top line and the bottom line. In the world of disruption, in the world of in the digital world, what matters? They start with clicks and likes. How do you translate clicks and likes into bottom line and indeed the top line? I think that is the big challenge that will confront the boards, and the boards will have to recompose themselves. One problem or one challenge that will remain is that the boards traditionally meet on a quarterly basis. Is that going to be sufficient given the speed of change and the disruption that will occur? I think only time will tell. But that is perhaps also something that one would need to reflect on.
Yeah, that is food for thought, definitely. Okay, Ehsan sir, according to McKinsey surveys, it is expected that 35 to 50% people shall be rendered jobless in the future because of the advanced breakthroughs in technologies and all. So what would the board's perspective be on this, given that it has social implications at large?
Absolutely. So robotics will improve efficiency. The robotics will also improve productivity. It would improve quality and hopefully bring the cost down. Cost of the products or the services that are made by the robotics or rendered by the robotics. So the good news from a consumer point of view is that goods will become better and more affordable, right? But what are robotics going to change? Robotics will typically address the repetitive, the boring parts of the workday, or the repetitive tasks that are generally undertaken by labor, on the factory floor, and so on. Now, having said that, here is a great opportunity for businesses to transform and for the boards to take responsibility. The boards are not only responsible for ensuring the top line and bottom line, not only ensuring the return on capital, but also protecting and promoting the reputation of the organization. I believe responsible companies and responsible boards will take on board the responsibility of retraining the individuals that are involved in that particular business, particularly those on the repetitive edge of the work. And a good board and a good company and a good manager and certainly a good leader is always proactive. So one should not wait for that change to happen. One should not wait for a robot to come into the workforce and start taking over the jobs. One has to start retraining on a very proactive basis.
Okay, thank you. Hina, if I can come to you then. I know you are a proponent of women empowerment. So like in the digital economy, what role do you think the women will play? Will there be a lot of opportunities for them?
Yes, definitely. I think this is the best time for women to work because, digital economy is providing them a lot of opportunities to work from home and flexibility. This is the area, if we promote that culture, and which is, this is not only in Pakistan, it is now everywhere in the world that everybody is now moving towards flexible working and work from home options. And through that, digital economy is going to play a pivotal role, and everybody will benefit from him. Especially, I am always convincing people like flexible hours working is a great option available, which will mobilize a lot of resources, not only from from cities, but also from towns and remote areas where accessibility of people is not, they cannot physically participate in economic activities. So by using digital transformation as an avenue for them, they can participate not only through the financial services, but also through their economic activities like startup opportunities and their businesses. They can grow their businesses through this technology. We are also being in the financial services sector. Also, I witnessed there is a lot of opportunities available to work from home, and we are providing. There is option that financial services can be provided through digital transformation easily throughout the economy.
Okay, Hina, we also know that you deal with a lot of SMEs. So in the digital revolution, do you think they are equipped to deal with the technological wave that's coming?
Yeah, but not really 100%, because there are a lot of awareness we need to be created, because at present SMEs are mostly involved in manual exercises. Either they don't have avenues, they don't have resources, or they don't have knowledge how to explore those opportunities. So this is the platform how we can convey these kind of opportunities to them, so that they can participate and benefit from these activities and grow themselves.
Okay, great. So that brings us to the end of the discussion. I would open the floor to questions, if anybody has a question.
Hello, it's Majid Lakhani. I'm a Vancouver-based international business development, strategic finance and investment consultant. And I've overseen the venture capital, private equity quite a bit around the world. My question is directed to Jehan Saba. What kind of commitment in concrete terms you were able to achieve out of those 6 venture VC firms you mentioned who talked to the startups?
So naturally, on a first meeting, nobody is going to invest right away, but Wamda Capital from the Middle East said that they would come back and within the next 4 years would invest up to $30 million in startups and mid-sized businesses in the technology sector. 500 startups is also looking at Pakistan in 2018 to invest in some of these startups. Abraj Capital has started a fund for startups which is called Bakery. They are already in negotiations with some of the startups that they met during the conference, and hopefully we will hear soon about a few investments. Also, Golden Gate Ventures from Singapore is also talking to a few startups, and we hope to hear in the next few weeks about concrete investments. There's also the Oman Technology Fund and Wadi Accelerator. Their representative is coming back this month to follow up with 5 startups for whom he has already received approval to invest in. So I think for one conference, this is a big achievement, because they were only able to meet a limited number of startups, only about 100. But hopefully once this begins, Middle East Venture Partners, which is one of the biggest venture funds in the Middle East, is also looking at Pakistan, and they are planning to come back next year. So I think things have begun to happen. So I'm very optimistic. No concrete investment was made, but we will hear in the next few weeks of at least 5 to 7 startups who will receive investment as a result of these 6 funds that came into Pakistan.
That surely is good news. Okay, so I think with that, we'd like to close the session. I would request Farooq, Khurshid, Saira to please come up so that we can take a group photograph with the respected panelists. Thank you so much, everyone.